The sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home. That's right. Today we're in the bluegrass state, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, on the United Taste of America podcast. I'm Rick K. Jones, and I'm actually a Kentucky colonel, but we're going to tell you a little bit more about that later. My old Kentucky home is the classic song by Stephen Foster. You know it because it's played and sung at the start of the Kentucky Derby each year. Weep no more, my lady. Weep no more today. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home. For the old Kentucky home far away. We're going to tell you a little bit more about that song a little bit later in the podcast. Kentucky was the frontier. You know, we've told you on this series that one of the reasons that we fought the British was that they did not want us to expand beyond the Appalachians. That was how they were handling the Native American problem. They basically were going to say the colonies of the Americans were going to be the eastern seaboard, and everything west of the Appalachians was Native American land. Well, you're not going to stop Americans. Go west, young man, Horace Greeley said. And many people flocked into what is now known as the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Originally, it was part of what? It was part of Virginia. Kentucky was part of the gigantic land grant. In fact, if you look at a map, Virginia ran all the way to California. It ran all the way across the country. And until the Louisiana Purchase, when we started subdividing it, it was part of it. But originally, again, it was part of Virginia. Who's explored and settled in Kentucky first? The famous Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone, frontiersman, he came and mapped and colonized the great state of Kentucky. It became our 15th state in the Union in 1792. Now, it was a slave state. And again, what was the cash crop? Tobacco. Tobacco, again, on the backs of enslaved people, largely in southern and middle and western Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky is mountains. It's the Appalachians, and it was largely settled by the Scotch-Irish. And the Scotch-Irish, the famous feud of the Hatfields and McCoys, that's in Kentucky. The Hatfields and McCoys were in Kentucky, two Scottish clan families that fought like so many of them did in that thing. What did the Scotch-Irish make a lot of? Whiskey. Moonshine whiskey, and we're going to talk more about that too. But they discovered something in the late 1700s in eastern Kentucky. They discovered coal, and coal became such a part of the state and such of the economic driver of the state going forward. Kentucky, the northern part of Kentucky, what separates Kentucky, the Mason-Dixon line, is the Ohio River. And the Ohio River was a primary shipping river for Ohio and other states. And so you have some great river towns, the biggest one being Louisville. And so a lot of the economy was about tobacco, coal, shipping, whiskey, bourbon. Why is bourbon so good in Kentucky? It's the water. Kentucky is full of limestone, and the limestone is a natural purifier to get pure water with a hint of lime. And that hint of lime allows you to do mash whiskeys differently. In fact, I think legally you can only be called bourbon if you are actually distilled in Bourbon County, Kentucky. Otherwise, you're what? Whiskey. Same process. Tennessee whiskey really is bourbon, but you can't call it bourbon. And so sour mash whiskey, corn whiskey, rye whiskey, all this is the process, but it's the water that allows that to happen. The limestone does one other thing. it grows wonderful grass called bluegrass. And the bluegrass has the lime in the grass. And the horses eat the bluegrass, and it makes their bones harder. And that's why we have the horse industry in Kentucky. It's known for horse racing. It's known for horse breeding. It's known for horse farms. Again, it's back to the same reason they have bourbon. They have horses. Now, no better place to drink bourbon than probably at a horse race, right? Like the famous Kentucky Derby. The Derby is the first major race for 3-year-olds of the Triple Crown. So you have the famous Kentucky Derby in Louisville the first Saturday of May. Then we've talked about both the Preakness in Maryland, and we talked about the Belmont in New York, which makes up the Triple Crown. I've been fortunate. The Derby should be on everybody's bucket list to go at least once. I'm fortunate. I've been three times to the Derby. It is spectacular. And obviously, when you go, you're going to drink what? A mint julep, okay? This is a julep cup. A real julep cup is made out of silver. So you're going to go to the Derby, you're going to get a Maker's Mark, who's the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby. You're going to get a Maker's Mark mint julep in a plastic cup. No. Why? Because how do you make a mint julep? You're going to make a mint julep by taking a silver cup and putting crushed ice in it, which is going to hold it really cold. And you're going to put simple syrup in it, bourbon in the crushed ice, simple syrup, and fresh mint. And you want to rub the mint on the side of the glass. And so when I make a julep, the first thing I do is take the mint and I rub it in. Then I put the crushed ice. Then I put the simple syrup. Then I put the bourbon. Then I put fresh mint on top. Mint julep cup. You need to get a julep cup. Great dish. All right, we talked about that song, My Old Kentucky Home, that they play at the Derby. It's a real place. It is a real home called Federal Hill in Bardstown, Kentucky, owned by a planter, the Rowan family. The Rowan family, again, what did they grow? Tobacco. They grew a little bit of cotton, but they grew mostly tobacco and some corn with slaves. Well, the Rowan family had a cousin, lived up in Pittsburgh, their Yankee cousin, just north of the border. His name was Stephen Foster. Stephen Foster was one of the great American songwriters of that era. He wrote one of my favorite songs, Camptown Races. He wrote a song called Old Folks at Home. Most people know that song is way down upon the Suwannee River. Stephen Foster wrote, as a tribute to his cousins, this song, My Old Kentucky Home. Now, Stephen Foster had read a book by Harriet Beecher Stowe called Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a story about how bad slavery was. Now, he's got family that owns slaves. The song, My Old Kentucky Home, believe it or not, is a song sung by a slave who has been sold away from Kentucky. They've sent him down the river. He's separated from his family. He's gone. And he sings this song of lament, of wanting to return to his old Kentucky home. A lot of people don't know that. Song about slavery, My Old Kentucky Home. Today, Federal Hill is a state park. It's called My Old Kentucky Home State Park. It's a spectacular place. Again, it's got a great place to eat there. It's got, great memorabilia. It's got a great gift shop. The grounds are beautiful. They do weddings there. They do lots of things there. It's, again, it's another bucket list place to go, to My Old Kentucky Home. And when you look at the vignette, our YouTube vignette on Kentucky, we filmed a lot of it there at Federal Hill at the home of My Old Kentucky Home. When we took the tour of the house, the docent, the gentleman dressed in period plantation garb, sang My Old Kentucky Home to us, and he sang it as well as anybody I've ever heard. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. If you like bourbon, Kentucky has a place called the Bourbon Trail. You literally can go from distillery to distillery. I suggest you get a driver because you're going to sample bourbon, flights of bourbon everywhere you go. It's a place. All right, I mentioned that I'm a Kentucky colonel. It's the highest honor given by the governor to people that have served the Commonwealth. And it is, again, a very high honor, and I'm very proud and very honored to be one. In my office at home, I have the frame of my designation as a Kentucky colonel. Now, Kentucky is also a treasure, and I mean a treasure of terrific foods. And one is a pretty interesting bridge from being a Kentucky colonel, because the best-known dish from Kentucky is what? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Kentucky Fried Chicken, and it's a great story. There was an entrepreneur, a restaurateur in Corbin, Kentucky, named Harlan Sanders. And Harlan Sanders had one little restaurant along the side of the road where they cooked fried chicken, but he cooked it differently. Again, I've talked to you about my newsletter that I have out there, On the Road with Rick, and the first edition, the first issue was in past December, and it was all about great fried chicken. And I love fried chicken that's cooked in an iron skillet, pan-fried chicken, not deep-fried chicken in a deep fryer, but pan-fried chicken. He did it differently. He cooked his fried chicken in a pressure cooker. Now, why? Number one, it holds the juices better than any. But secondly, you cook it faster. And so if you're in a restaurant, you're turning lots of people, you don't have time to have all these pans of iron skillets cooking fried chicken. Pressure cooker fried chicken. And that's the way Kentucky Fried Chicken original recipe is still cooked the same way. Well, something happens in 1950. The governor makes Harlan Sanders a Kentucky colonel. But he took it to extremes that I haven't taken it to. He started dressing as the colonel. He started wearing a white suit with a bolo tie. And he called himself, what? Colonel Sanders. So he was never a colonel in the Army. He was a Kentucky colonel proclaimed by the governor. He took on it. And so then he started becoming famous. And so in 1952, he did something that made him rich. He started franchising Kentucky Fried Chicken all over the country and eventually all over the world. And as we know, the rest is history. Kentucky Fried Chicken. But they're known for other food. We mentioned bourbon. Bourbon, not only is it a great drink, you can make bourbon balls or bread pudding with bourbon sauce or the famous Derby pie, which is kind of basically a pecan pie, but it's got bourbon in it and a little bit of chocolate and stuff. Derby pie is a great dish. They're famous in Kentucky for their barbecue, but they barbecue something that they don't do other places. They barbecue lamb, mutton. Western Kentucky around Owensboro is the spot to get barbecued mutton. Now, again, that's sheep. Mutton is old lamb, okay? Lamb is young lamb, lamb chops, that's baby sheep, lambs. Mutton is really an older sheep, the tough meat that you need to barbecue and put it on the grill for a long, long time. They make a famous stew. We talked about Brunswick stew in Georgia and for Virginia. In their version of Brunswick stew in Kentucky is called burgoo. And of course, it was originally made with game. You ate it with possum and squirrel and raccoon and all that. Today, it's made with chicken and pork. Burgoo, vegetables, great dish, great, wonderful dish. We're going to talk about Ohio in a few weeks. And Ohio is known for their famous chili parlors in the Cincinnati area, where so much of that is across the river. And so around Covington, Kentucky, and areas close to Cincinnati and Kentucky are known for great chili and their chili parlors. But there's one famous dish that actually was created and invented in Kentucky. It is the dish called the hot brown. It was created at the famous Brown Hotel in Louisville. The Brown Hotel was built by businessman James Graham Brown, and it opened its doors on October 25th, 1923, right in the roaring 20s. The first guest to sign the register of the Brown Hotel was the Prime Minister of England, David Lloyd George. First guest at the famous Brown Hotel. It was designed by architect Preston Bradshaw. It's a Georgian revival style hotel. It cost in 1923 $4 million. $4 million in 1923. That's about $300 million today. Had 600 rooms, had big ballrooms, had gift shops, had restaurants, and became the place, became the social center for business and social gatherings, weddings, receptions, dances in the port city, the river port city of Louisville. Okay, we're in the roaring 20s. A lot of hooch, a lot of, again, remember, Prohibition had come, but that didn't stop great hotels from serving booze. They just did it illegally. And they had dances. And the hotel chef in 1926 was a guy named Fred Schmidt. And Fred Schmidt, when they would have the dances and a lot of drinking, people would have a hangover. And he just got sick and tired of cooking steak and eggs or scrambled eggs and ham, which were the go-to. And so he invented a dish to serve for a late night breakfast hangover dish called the hot brown. The hot brown is an open-faced turkey sandwich with bacon, cheese, tomatoes, and a Mornay sauce. So how do you make it? Texas toast. You need a thick toast to soak up all the stuff you're about to put. Then they cook. Today they cook literally dozens of roast turkeys every day because they do turkey breasts that they cut. So it's Texas toast, just cooked roast turkey, turkey breast, cheese Mornay sauce, a sliced tomato, 3 slices of bacon, and then they bake it. And it bubbles, and it's called a hot brown. They serve it there for breakfast. They serve it there for lunch. They serve it for dinner, and they serve it in the bar for late night, 4 times a day to eat a hot brown. It's a great historic hotel. It's a great iconic dish. Our vignette series on YouTube, you get a tour of the hotel, and you see how this amazing dish is made. I hope you'll tune in on iHeart's YouTube page for United Taste of America and watch how the famous Kentucky hot brown is made. Brown Hotel, Louisville, Kentucky. Yes, indeed. There's some other great, wonderful restaurants in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We talked about barbecue mutton. You got to head over to Owensboro, Kentucky, in the western part of the state, to the famous Moonlight Barbecue. It's been there forever. They serve great barbecued lamb, mutton, sheep, but you want to start with a big old bowl of burgoo. So get your burgoo and start with that, and then get your barbecue plate. It's Moonlight Barbecue in Owensboro, Kentucky, one of my favorite places. I mentioned Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone originally settled in a little community called Berea, Kentucky, and Berea still has a college there. And it's a college largely for the mountain people. Hillbillies, basically. It was a school to educate poor Scotch-Irish from the coal region of Kentucky, Berea College. In Berea, they make beautiful corn husk dolls. And so when you're there touring and you want to get a souvenir, buy a corn husk doll. I have a nativity scene that I bought a long time ago in Berea, Kentucky. It's the nativity scene with all of it made with corn husk dolls. Well, they have a famous place there called the Boone Tavern on the campus of Berea College, the Daniel Boone Tavern. And there they make, in my opinion, the best chicken and dumplings I've ever had, ever. Chicken and dumplings at the Boone Tavern in historic Berea. And then there was a religious group in the late 1800s called the Shakers. And the Shakers were formed as a denomination in upstate New York. And they were known for fervent preaching and getting the Holy Spirit and shaking. The religion doesn't exist anymore. Why? They didn't believe in procreation. They separated men from women. And when you don't have babies, you don't have any more converts. One of the places the Shakers settled was in a place called Shakertown in Pleasant Hill, Kentucky. And so it is a restored Shaker village there. Now, the Shakers were famous furniture makers. Beautiful. They were famous for two things. Three things. Didn't have sex. That's one. Separated the men and women, even in church. Men sat on one side, women sat, even had separate entrances to the church. Women came in one door, men came in the other door. But they were famous for two other things. They were very, very famous for their furniture making, Shaker-style furniture. And original Shaker furniture can get millions of dollars for an original Shaker china cabinet or rocking chair or the other. What else were they famous for? Seeds. Early on, they knew about seeds, and they would harvest crops and keep the seeds and sell the seeds literally all over the country and ultimately all over the world. This is a wonderful place, Shaker Village, Pleasant Hill, and they have an amazing restaurant there. And what you want to do at lunch is get the Kentucky Sampler, okay? This is what you get: pimento cheese, some other cheese and crackers, bacon jam, country ham, mini buttermilk biscuits, pecans, and preserves. It's like a charcuterie plate, but a Shaker version of a charcuterie plate. The Kentucky Sampler at Shaker Village in Pleasant Hill, Kentucky. 3 from me today. Our playlist, of course, we've got My Old Kentucky Home. We've got a classic John Prine song about coal mining called Paradise. Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lays? Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has hauled it away. Paradise, strip mine, town gone. Wonderful song by John Prine, the late John Prine. He passed away last year. Elvis Presley has an amazing song called Kentucky Rain. The great Neil Diamond has a wonderful song we all know called Kentucky Woman. And then there's the great Loretta Lynn, who was born in Kentucky and recorded the famous song Coal Miner's Daughter. But folks, I got a bonus for you today. There's one other kind of music from Kentucky. It's called what? Bluegrass music. And it was made popular by one man, Bill Monroe, and his famous Bluegrass Boys. And we have on our playlist today the very famous Bill Monroe with Blue Moon of Kentucky. So that's a wrap on our culinary tour of Kentucky. We'll see you next week when United Taste of America heads to the volunteer state of Tennessee.